name's Yourkowski. Been coming to Wellspring since probably 2019. Somebody else can do the math there. I work for the Navigators, Christian missionary organization, retired from the military back in 2004, and then ended up coming to the Peninsula in 2017 to work with the Naval Postgraduate School, Defense Language Institute, and then ended up at Wellspring. So probably the thing that God impressed upon me the most in the last 20 years is probably trust. And so Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. It's very easy for me to trust in myself and not trust others, not trust God. But by doing that, I end up on my own path and not God's path. And the fact is, God's path is better than my path. He knows more. He knows what he made me for. Probably another verse associated with that, Ephesians 2:10. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which he prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. And so if I want to find myself in the place I was always meant to be, I need to trust God and follow him. So I was discipled through the Navigators, and there's a lot of spiritual disciplines. So you know, kind of like you're supposed to have quiet times, you're supposed to pray, you're supposed to be in fellowship, you're supposed to go to church. And so I was trying to do all those things, and then I got orders to the Pentagon, and that's the last place I wanted to go. I hate big cities, bureaucracy, and traffic, and Pentagon was all of that. And so it made me feel like God was punishing me. And really, like, Christianity was more like just duty, drudgery, going through the motions. It was not joyful. And so, but that orders to the Pentagon really exposed all that, brought it to the front of my awareness. And so we're doing a Bible study in church called Sonship, was how to live as a child of God, not as an orphan who's trying to earn favor with God. And I realized that's what I had been doing with my spiritual disciplines, was earning favor with God so that I would get what I wanted. And then it turns out that actually that job at the Pentagon was a blessing. And so it made me realize that God's plans actually are better than my plans. And that I don't know enough to figure out if something is good or bad. So the story I use with guys is like, if you get a flat tire, is that a bad thing or a good thing? Well, it feels like a bad thing, but if you knew that getting that flat tire kept you from getting killed 5 minutes later, you would think it was the best thing that happened to you. We just don't know enough to know if something's a good or bad, which is why we need to trust in the one that does know. And so then, from that standpoint on, that was kind of what was in front of me, was this shift of learning to trust God rather than my own understanding. And probably, I don't know if it's something where you get older and wiser, but you begin to realize that I don't know enough to know what the plan is. And so it's just, there's a lot more freedom in trusting God and knowing that he knows, and I can trust in that. So the getting assigned to the Pentagon was kind of like the situation that forced me to evaluate my faith journey. And so I would say that God is so faithful to not allow you to stay in some rut that's less than you could be. And so he will bring you to places that seem painful. Another verse just popped in my head, but to expose those areas of unbelief or false belief or something like that. So I think all of our lives, we never want to be in a place to say, oh, I understand. because, like Tony has said in one of his sermons, quoting some guy, that I'm pretty sure that 20% of what I believe isn't true. I just don't know what 20%. And so I want to have God expose these areas in my life, because those things are actually hindering me from aligning myself with God. And so the Pentagon was like the first really big event that brought all that to the surface. Yeah, so we had got orders to Quantico, which is south of the Pentagon, and so we had rented a house, and Donna was pregnant with Dakota, our fourth child, and my commute was like 20 minutes to the command there at Quantico. And so when I checked in to the command, they said, oh, we changed your orders, you're actually working at the Pentagon. So my commute went to an hour and a half, and of course, kind of wondering what's going to happen with all the traffic, and if I'm at work and Donna goes into labor, it just seemed like a disaster. And yet, God worked all that stuff out, and it was, that time was a great spiritual growth. The church we were involved in, we really loved that church. Professionally, it was a great job to have. So again, God's plan was better than my plan. And so looking back on that, even though I don't want to work at the Pentagon again, I look back on that as being a very positive experience and really part of God's plan in the whole process. Yeah, so after the Pentagon, we got assigned different places, but we ended up in Colorado, and I retired from the military and went on staff with the Navigators, which I always said my entire life I'd never go on staff with the Navigators. Who in their right mind would do that? But I just didn't get excited about anything else except for helping people grow in their faith. And the Navigators were what I'd been involved with. All my friends were there. And so I think going on staff with the Navigators was part of that trusting God for, all that aspect of a different kind of lifestyle. And then we were in Colorado for 13 years. And then the Navigator staff here asked us to come out and join them to do ministry out here. And so again, moving to California, you must be out of your mind to do that. But it was pretty clear that God was leading in that direction. And so it's interesting as I think back on it, adjusting to an hour and a half commute was harder at that time than moving from Colorado to California. And I think that's because God had kind of trained me and Donna and I, on trusting Him in the midst of that. And His plans are better than my plans. So we came out here in 2017, and we love what we do, meet with military folks, and just kind of mentoring them. And they come from all ranges and all different locations. And they go all over the world, so it's kind of cool to think you're having an impact on people that are going a lot of different places. So we got here in 2017, and we were attending the chapel at NPS, the Naval Postgraduate School. But we also knew that all our relationships were the young people, and we were looking, how do we get deeper relations with our peers? And so we thought about going to a church, and somewhere, I don't know if it was a couple that we were meeting with, DLI students were attending Wellspring, Josh and Liz, and they invited us to come to Wellspring. I think we might have met Tony at that time, but he was trying to figure out how to do ministry to the military people that were attending his church. So we met with Tony, and I liked his ministry philosophy. I liked his approach to faith and growth. And so we started attending Wellspring on a semi-regular basis, but then they shut down the chapel at the Naval Postgraduate School, so then we just came to Wellspring full-time. So that was probably in 2019. So we were here during the COVID outdoor breeze-a-thon. I don't know what you call that. Blankets and lawn chairs. And I just think that's just was a special time of connecting with people and spiritual growth. It was relatively warm. And then somewhere around 10:30, the wind would start blowing and it was cold. And so pretty soon everybody got the idea. You wear your winter clothes and you bring blankets. Because I think there was something even before that when everybody was in lockdown and Tony was preaching, but it was all on video, And then even for Tony, it was like, it's really hard to preach to a camera, So then there was a deal where they had pictures of people and they would put him out in the congregation so that he could preach looking at faces. But anyway, it was kind of interesting how we adapted for that. Yeah, the spiritual disciplines are important, but what is the purpose of them and what motivates them? What motivates me to be involved in? And so, again, this idea of aligning with God so that He can direct our paths to the place I was meant to be. So I want to be in His Word. I want to be praying. I want to be in fellowship. I want to live a life that is a witness. I want to be obedient to the Scriptures. And the thing that stood out to me was that I have trouble praying. I mean, I kind of pray, but I'm not disciplined at it. And so one of the opportunities was the prayer group that meets before church. And so my wife and I come here, and it's just been a good experience to gain some more understanding of just praying together and listening to God and trying to determine even if should I pray about something or not pray about something. How's the Spirit leading in that? And then one of my desires, I thought, was to have a prayer walk on the Naval Postgraduate School, pray about the folks we minister to, the just general spiritual health of the place. But I'm not disciplined to do that. And so I met a guy, Doug Dunmeyer, and every other week we get lunch and then I bring him onto the school and we just walk around praying. And so having, somebody with you to help you exercise those spiritual disciplines is really great. And I feel like, and I think we were just talking the other day, we did a prayer walk, and it's been almost a year that we've been doing it. And I just, it's hard to say because of this, that resulted in this, but it just seems like there's more interest in spiritual things. There's more opportunities than I've got capacity. It's relatively easy. I don't know what that looks like. So I've been really encouraged just in the folks here at Wellspring, like thinking about Ben Chamberlain, who started the prayer ministry, felt like God was leading him in that direction, and now that provided me an opportunity to grow in my prayer discipline. And then Doug, who comes to the prayer meeting, was willing to come with me to the school to pray. So, yeah, none of this would be what I would have figured out on my own. This has all been God's leading in ways that is unexpected to me. That would be, I think, in some ways, that's just God has wired me to be on a team, and it's interesting because in our regular lives, right? Like, let's say if I don't know anything about fixing my car, I go to somebody who knows how to fix a car. And in our spiritual life, somehow we think we're supposed to have it all figured out. But reality, if there's something I don't know about spiritual life, I should go find somebody who actually does know. And so the prayer thing is something that I feel like I've always desired to be better at. And so just natural that you'd find somebody who are better at it than me and learn from them. So I don't know if it's a spiritual maturity, or is it just wisdom of life to say I don't know everything, and so I need to go to people who do, who have expertise in an area that I'm interested in. And so it's been but I really commend Ben and Doug because they were willing to step out, and then Doug, he's got lots of stuff going on, but he's willing to come because he has an interest in having an impact in ministry, and so he's willing to take time out of his schedule to come and pray. So I'm really thankful that there's folks stepping up and listening to God and doing what God tells them to do. And we all benefit from that. Don't do it alone. Small groups are great, but I really think that if you want help in your spiritual growth, find somebody who you can meet with individually. And if you're a more mature believer, part of your mission from God is to come alongside younger people, not necessarily younger in age, but younger in faith, and kind of encourage them. You don't know everything, but you do know some things, and so whatever is helpful to you, that's what you pass on to the next generation. There is an aspect of meaningful life that's tied into